Where are we? 19th of August. Planning board. First, let's note that this meeting is being recorded and maybe or will be rebroadcast on WestfordCAT. We'll start as we always do with open forum. We'll go to staff. Joe?
Just if anybody is here tonight for 7 Carl Thompson Road, they have requested to continue to the September 16th meeting. And also, we just wanted to make a quick announcement just to get the word out there. 2 months from now, we're already talking special town meeting, October 21st, Westford Academy at 7 p.m. It's a Monday night. Mark your calendars.
What happens if it goes more than one night, Joe?
Hopefully it doesn't. But if it does, the meeting will go to the next week, October 28th. Same time, 7 p.m.
Which we may have to, we do have a planning board meeting scheduled for that day, so we'll have to work on those logistics.
Great case. Anything else, Joe?
I don't have anything else. I think
Vinny?
Jeff has something.
Jeff?
Does Vinny have something?
Yes, the scenic roads. I can go scenic roads tonight.
Reminder that there are scenic roads in town.
There's 10 scenic roads, but I'm not going to go alphabetical, but I'll just say them out loud. So Chamberlain, Leland, Belger Street, Old Road, Old Law Road, Voice Road, Old Law Road? Gold Road?
Yeah. Okay. So the public service announcement is there are scenic ways in town.
Yes.
If you're looking to alter stone walls or cut trees in and near there, you should probably reach out and see if there's any kind of permitting process. So thank you, Vinny.
Terrific.
And then lastly, Mr. Chair, just for those that don't know, the Attorney General's office did review and approve our zoning bylaw amendment for the multifamily housing for MBTA communities. They approved that on August 5th, so now we're just awaiting a subsequent review by the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities. So we'll still have a bylaw whether or not we're deemed compliant. So, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
A lot of work by a lot of people.
I go to the board. Anything for open forum?
No, just FYI, I did sign my Mullen form because I did watch the July meeting.
Okay, great.
So I was
Thank
not
you.
here.
All right, unless there's objection by the board, I'd like to grab general business item E. First, it's the request to authorize administrative review and approval for change of use from personal services establishment, compassion massage, to retail sales, the general public, marathon sports. I see it's probably pretty simple instead of her sitting through the whole thing, so if you want to hop up. Great, you want to just let us know what you plan on doing there?
Sure. Where we would like to open Marathon Sports, which is a retail sporting goods store where we provide a gait analysis to help people choose the right shoes and insoles for their foot type, whether it be walking or running or any type of moving your body.
Great.
Can we just ask for your name and address for the minute taker for the record?
Diana Chivakos, and I'm at 40 Griffin Road.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any questions? I'll go Bob down the line.
Only question would have to be what the change of traffic would be, and if the town has done that analysis in terms of customers per unit of time.
Yeah, I mean, based on the hours, we don't anticipate any traffic issues out there compared to what the prior use was. There shouldn't be any conflicts or any need for any new traffic analysis.
So I think it was not the immediately prior use, but uses prior were the same or similar type of use as what they're proposing. So
I was going to say.
No, nothing.
No. Seems pretty straightforward. Yep.
All right. So can I have a motion to authorize administrative review, approval of the change of use from personal service establishment to retail sales at 160 Littleton Road at the former Compassion Massage?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Make sure you come shop with us.
Okay, and as was said by Joe, 7 Carl Thompson has been continued without discussion. Should we get a motion for that, to continue that to September 16th, 2024? It's PB 2415.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All All right, moving right along. 426 Littleton Road, PB 2409. Attorney DeShanes, good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. For the record, Douglas DeShane representing the applicant. Here with me this evening, Mr. Carr, the owner of the property. We have been here for a number of weeks, or we haven't been here in a few weeks, but we have been here for a number of months going through this process. Just want to let you know we're finished up with conservation. They did issue us an order of conditions, and in doing so, did provide a lot of restrictions with respect to chemical storage and some of the things that this board asked about. So we're doubly protected. We've even included lease provisions to provide the town protection. And staff was kind enough to send us over the draft decisions. We've reviewed them. Had no changes, actually. They were very well done. And I do believe they are very consistent with the same conditions that the Conservation Commission required with respect to the lease provisions and chemical storage and all of that. So it should be pretty easy to satisfy that because it's the same requirement. So we're happy to answer any questions the board has, but we appreciate all the effort staff did in putting these decisions, and we think they're very comprehensive and acceptable to Mr. Carr.
Great. Go to the board. Any questions, Bob, concerns, comments?
There is one concern, I don't know how I missed it or any of us missed it, but in the project summary on all of the documents, there is a statement, I'm trying to bring it up here right now. There is a statement that states that the parcel, it is surrounded by commercial uses in all directions. That is not accurate. It is within the town of Westford, but it is not within Littleton. So I think that statement just needs to be corrected.
Sure. Actually, though, and again, we're 100%, well, however you want to word it, the property to the direct right, which is in Littleton, that is a commercial use, Bob, on Littleton Road.
I'm talking about the...
Behind us is two residential.
Residences on the backside.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Agree 100%.
So I just want to make sure that that's accurate in all the statements. And that appears in multiple places in the packet.
All three, yeah.
Yeah, all three, the project summary. So we'll have, maybe something similar to this, or we could always work with the chair on the exact language that
Yeah.
the board may like.
That's the only concern I have at this time.
Okay. Joe?
No, nothing.
No?
I'm good.
Darren?
No further comments.
And having said that, you feel we should approve this subject to that change? And I can review it before it's signed? Is that okay with you, Bob?
I'm fine with that.
All right. So we have, do we want a motion for each? Do we actually, yes, Mr. Morissette?
Should we just check that there's no additional public comment before you?
Oh, we still have a public meeting. Sorry about that. Yes, anybody from the audience have any comments for this 426 Littleton Road? All right.
I'll move that we close the public hearing for PB 2409.
Second?
Motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Oh, you want to mix them? Now again, Mr. Morissette, do we want separate ones for each?
So you have benefit of the draft decisions in your packet. You could either take the votes all at once. If you are going to separate them, I would encourage you to vote on the special permit first before the others.
Is there a preference for you?
Honestly, it makes no difference. It doesn't sound like there's any, if you want to do one motion for all, then it's fine.
For all then. All right. So we need a motion for PB 2409, 426 Littleton Road for site plan review. We have a draft decision. We have a
Stormwater permit.
And a special permit for parking
And
reduction.
special permit for parking reduction. Is there a motion to approve as amended requested tonight?
Yep, I will move that we approve this trifecta of decisions for PB 2409 amended to include the project summary as articulated by Bob.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Terrific.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work, and especially Jeff and Joe. A lot of effort put in here.
Good luck.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks.
Good luck with the project.
Yeah, good luck.
And our assistant planner that toils behind the scenes in the shop. Good luck to you as well.
All right, moving on to PB 2418, 19 Nutting Road, and I suppose that we could also call 2419 64 Village Road. Join?
Good evening. Have both meetings.
Well, we'll start with the one, and then if we, might as well keep them together.
Yeah.
A little less formal, I suppose.
I'll move that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2418.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I'll move that we open the public hearing for PB 2418.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So just for the record, my name is Mark Warren, and I am the superintendent of the Westford Water Department.
Good evening. I'm Brian Weiner. I'm a civil engineer with Ty and Bond. Perform the engineering for the site plans that were submitted.
Terrific. Mr. Morissette?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out that there are waiver requests for application fees, as this is a municipal project. That is one of the qualifications under the zoning bylaw. So we would ask that the board at some point to consider waiving the application fees and act on the request.
Suppose we'll discuss it right now. Anybody have any thoughts on waiving the fees for the water department instead of taking them from one and giving to the other?
Little left pocket, right pocket?
Exactly. I'm not opposed to waiving the fees. Bob, any thoughts?
Nope, not opposed.
Joni?
No.
Seems fine.
No issues.
All right. So motion to waive the fees for the what's the proper name for the fees?
Just application fees.
Application fees, PB 2418 and 2419. Can I do them both now or wait till the other?
I would, since we only have one hearing open now, I would.
For 2418. Yep.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. We got a summary for us?
So, good evening again. We're proposing a PFAS treatment upgrade at the existing water treatment plant site at 19 Nutting Road. The project is necessitated by regulatory compliance, and so we've been working with Mark Warren and the Water Department and the Water Commissioners to develop a plan for compliance that involves the construction of a new PFAS treatment building on the same site. We've positioned it approximately 60 feet away from the existing plant, and so the new building will function together with the existing facility to meet the regulations. The new plant, it's to the north of the existing plant. Yeah,
Right
thank you.
there.
Yeah. So we've developed a site plan that includes grading, utilities, and stormwater management. The stormwater management takes into account the increase in impervious area from paving and from the roof. It's directed through a series of catch basins, which ultimately goes to an infiltration basin that has a forebay, and then it has an overflow that leads back to the existing drain system on the site, which was taken as a design point. We've had consultations back and forth with the engineering department, and they've performed a review of what was submitted. The comments are generally minor in nature. They're more of a questions and making sure we're on the same page with construction details. And so we had the engineering review that was issued. As part of this, we also had the fire department review the site plans, and they determined that it was an acceptable layout for their turning radius. Some other highlights, well draining soils. It's all sands and gravels, so it's lines up well for the facilities that we selected. We're before you looking for site plan approval as well as a stormwater management permit. We're under 15% impervious, so we don't trigger the special permit. Couple other highlights, a little bit to the south on the plan, we have a second access off Nutting Road.
Right there.
And what we've done is we've maintained that at a width of 12 feet. Once you have the initial turning radius into the driveway, it's intended to be a gated entrance with a swing gate similar to the existing facility. We've lined it up with the conservation parcel that's directly across the street. And we felt that this was the best approach to fit the site and at the same time maintain access for the fire department. Some things about the building. It's a masonry building.
So this one will be, oh, you're right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so it'll be a masonry building with vinyl shaker facing to match the existing building. It'll be the same color, intended to closely match, blend into the surrounding. It's 54 by 90. It'll have process equipment. It'll have an electric room, a mechanical room, and a bathroom. There's no change in use. There's no new employees. There's no change in parking. And we have no new chemicals with this expansion that we're planning. That's a basic layout of the floor plan. And so we're at the point where we're going from preliminary design to final design, and there'll be some minor updates within the building footprint itself related to the process design. We're removing the PFAS using GAC filters, which is a widely known, accepted approach. We're performing a pilot study and following the mass drinking water requirements. This project is funded through DWSRF, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. It was voted on at meeting. The date of the town meeting, I can.
So, if I may interrupt, what is, Superintendent Warren, what is your plan on starting construction once this gets approved?
Well, our plan is this, we are participating in the state revolving fund. We have to get our loan application in by, I think, October 11th. We are going to be finishing up final design by February?
We're looking at finishing by the end of the year, and then we'll
Yeah.
have a final set. And we're looking to wrap up bid in the spring.
Right, and if all goes well, start construction in July of 2025. That's kind of the plan.
All right, excellent. So why don't I ask the board if they have any questions? And we take public comment. Bob?
Yeah, as a member of the board from when we did the original treatment facility at 19 Nutting Road, one of the big concerns from the neighbors was, there's two concerns. One, how it would fit into the neighborhood. I think you've addressed that with how you're making it look architecturally similar to the original. But the second was ambient noise levels. So I do need to get on the record what you forecast for noise emanating from this new facility compared to the original treatment plant.
So we're not expecting any change. We have no noisy equipment. Everything's contained within the building.
It's a filtration plant, so
it's-
there really should be no additional noise whatsoever.
Yeah, if we could just get some data on that. We used data from other towns last time.
Yeah, I can submit a statement. So it's pumps that are internal to the building that go through filters that.
I don't expect it to be a problem, but we did go through this before, so.
Yeah, I can provide a statement. It's
Okay.
it's pumps and it's entirely within the building.
Yeah, it was pumps, and I think it was exhaust fans, et cetera.
We don't have that.
Okay.
We just have the pumps and the filters. It's very, very low noise, and it's all contained within the building. The noise that a worker would have inside.
And one other, I believe, correction to the plan, you showed the building as being originally constructed in 1985. I believe it was 2002.
That is correct. Yeah, I think construction started in 2002, finished by 2004.
Yeah,
That is correct, yeah.
so, yeah, it was correct on the other location, so, that's
All
it.
right. No, I apologize. Was it on the application?
It was just in the permit card, for some reason, it showed the facility
Oh,
as
permit card. Okay.
1985.
Okay.
And both of these facilities were during my first term, and it was
Yeah, no
2002.
Correct that.
That's it.
Anything else, Bob?
That's everything.
Joey?
I just have one quick question. I saw a note about 3 waivers. One, obviously being the fee, one being the depth of the storm drain piping, but what's the third waiver request?
So there's 3 waivers with the engineering department, and they had said they're acceptable. I can find the exact language they gave, but so what they are, it's the cover over the drain piping.
Right.
It's the use of HDPE drain piping instead of reinforced concrete drain piping. And then there's a third one which involves the hydraulics of the infiltration basin design where the inlet pipe is allowed to be submerged.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
It was explained to us they're typical waivers that others have asked for and been able to get in the past, and they'd worded the approval in such a way that, let's see, it said the engineering department would not be opposed to the requested waivers, provided the pipe is installed with the manufacturer's specifications and a minimum 2 feet of cover is achieved, and so we've met that requirement.
Yeah, we see it all the
What's up?
time.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Those waivers look familiar to you because they're part of your subdivision rules and regulations. There's actually a question as to whether or not those standards truly apply to site plan review. So we defer to the board. They've requested it. You can either find that they're not needed or simply grant them. But this has come up many times in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Dylan?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Darren?
No questions right now, thanks.
So I'll go to the public. Does the public have any questions, comments on this one for Nutting? All right. If so, please feel free to go. All right, seeing none, does engineering give us an idea on when they'd be able to get back on there? Are they final review of that stormwater? Did I miss that?
We just received it late last week, the letter dated August 15th, review memo.
Yeah, they did provide their memo for the board's review. They didn't have any
No major concerns?
major concerns on this one. As the applicant mentioned, there are more so details that are probably going to come up during the construction of the facility. So the board wanted me to incorporate those into the conditions for any approval you may look to issue.
I would think that's wise, and continue this for the next hearing, to close the public hearing and have staff get a draft decision for us.
Sure.
Does that work for you, Superintendent Warren? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, if
that'd be
there is something that's time sensitive, I'm sure the board would appreciate hearing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are kind of on a tight schedule. Like I said, we have to get our SRF loan application in by October 11th. And this is all so that we can meet compliance with the new EPA standards within a couple of years. So it is pretty time sensitive.
All right, so if October 11th, I mean, I wonder if we have to have a decision done and be on the appeal period for his application. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Morissette? It being the 16th, our next hearing?
So that would, if there have any concerns about an appeal period, that would be problematic for the October 7th. I think we would miss that by a handful of days, or it would be right there. So that is a little tight.
It's tight.
How would the board feel if we finish this up tonight, subject to review by engineering, and so long as there's no major issues?
I'm fine. I think it's fine. Yes.
All right, why don't we do that then? All right, so can you get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
The motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I say aye. All right, so for PB 2409, nope, that's the wrong one. 2418, 19 Nuttern Road, we have a application for site plan review and stormwater management permit.
I'm confused on that. Do they need a stormwater management permit? I thought you didn't meet the impervious.
So we don't meet the impervious, which keeps it as a site plan review. We're right up against the threshold with the 1 acre.
Okay.
And so that's what triggered the stormwater management permit.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And so
So-
currently, it's the same plans, same technical work for the stormwater calculations and report. So we also applied for the stormwater management permit.
Okay.
So they're at the threshold, so they opted to file for it, even if they just miss it, in case they, for some reason, went over, then they would have to come back to the board for an after the fact. So
Sorry.
I actually commend them for that, so thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So do you need a motion to conditionally approve those, subject to, I guess, final resolution of any lingering engineering items?
Correct. I would say that's correct.
And we're happy to provide drafts at that point. We could, if you're amenable, we can run it by, a member of the board, or chair, or someone to, if that works. Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
All right, so motion a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Correct. All right, moving on to PB 2419, 60 Forge Village Road.
I'll move that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2419.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion.
I'll move that we open the public hearing for PB.
Before that, fees?
Please, yeah.
I thought we had to open, then we did the fees.
Okay, whatever.
Board has flexibility, whichever way you
I'll
want to.
move that we waive the application fees for PB 2419.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
And I'll move that we open PB 2419.
Motion and second to open the public hearing.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Terrific. Here we are.
Thank you. So the Forge Village treatment upgrade is very similar to the Nutting Road upgrade. The site plan review and stormwater management permit have been requested. If we can bring up the plans. Again, we have a 54, essentially identical building, other than possibly with utilities coming into the building. And we have a different veneer. We're using block face instead of the vinyl shaker. The block face will match the existing plant, and it's to be located at approximately 65 feet to the east of the existing building. And so we have
This is it right here.
So the new building is intended to match the existing. We're proposing grading, utilities, additional pavement in the new building, which results in a stormwater design being needed. We're proposing, very similar to the other site, a series of catch basins and an infiltration basin for stormwater management. It underwent a peer review from the engineering department, and they had some comments, many of them similar to the other site. And unique things with this building, again, matching the existing, exactly the same equipment, same process, same interior to the building. We've made it so that we could have very similar project sites. The intent is to have both treatment plants as part of the same project when it gets built.
And any additional waivers on this one as opposed?
We have the same waiver requests as the last site related to cover over the storm drain pipe, the type of drain pipe, and hydraulics related to the infiltration basin.
Again, for the benefit of the minutes taker, could you just state your names for the public record, please?
My name's Brian Weiner. I'm a civil engineer with Ty and Bond.
My name is Mark Warren. I'm the Westford Water Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will go back to the board. Bob?
No questions on this one.
Jody?
No questions.
No questions. Darren? No. Invite the audience, if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, you can please come up to the microphone, state your name. Okay, seeing none, go back to the board, and your thoughts on this one?
They're the same as the last one.
Same as it ever was. All right.
Good.
So I guess, motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You want to go again?
I will move that we approve PB 2419 at 60 Forge Village Road, both the stormwater management permit as well as the site plan review for the water treatment.
Subject to?
Subject to engineering finalizing any minor items left with the applicant.
Second.
Motion to second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consiration regarding the schedule.
No, good luck.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with it.
We drink this water.
Yeah.
Well, most of us do.
You're lucky.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
All right, is this to you, Mr. Morissette?
Sure, we're gonna tag team this. Once you open the hearing and such, we will, Joe will do a better job
I
going
will
through the
move that we
materials.
waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2403.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. And I'll move that we open the public hearing on PB 2403.
Second.
Motion to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we have, hopefully for this town meeting, a few less controversial zoning bylaw amendments for your consideration. Kind of broke them up into two parts. In this hearing, we have a number of parking requirements that we'll discuss, and then the later one will be a few different uses that we're looking to either add and define to our zoning bylaw or make some minor changes. So even though we have them separate, they may end up kind of blending together a little bit. So we're going to just briefly kind of go over why we're looking at our parking requirements a bit, what are some trends and little research that we've done, what are the use categories that we're looking to make some proposed changes for, and what we're proposing. So parking, like many things in construction, come up in terms of the cost that they're generating nowadays, and construction costs continuing to go up and having impacts on what projects can pencil out. They have impacts on the impervious surface area, plus stormwater management systems, and then other sustainability goals that municipalities have. Research from the American Planning Association notes that there's costs to municipalities for overbuilding parking. Parking doesn't generate the same tax revenue that other uses could provide if we were more efficient in how we thought about how sites could be laid out. And then, you know, there are different just technology changes, preference changes, areas changing over time that can lead to malls or other centers that used to generate a lot of traffic, just not doing so like it used to. As industries change. So it's good every once in a while to just kind of do a review of what you're doing, see if it still makes sense. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, just as a friendly reminder during the MBTA communities process, some of the top three things that folks are interested in. They were interested in achieving sustainability goals. They were achieving more walk, bike-friendly infrastructure, particularly if we're going to start to see more mixed-use projects come up. They want to see them designed well. So this is just the chart from the survey that we put out at that point, just as a friendly reminder. Those are kind of the top three things that had the highest priority for people thinking about. Parking requirements, you know, whether or not you're looking at Westford or other nearby municipalities, no matter the use, they can vary across the board. Just, you know, no matter what type, and people can kind of try to get creative whether they're looking at seats or square footage, or sometimes they don't even have a parking requirement for a particular use. They can also get a little complicated. So this is an example. I'll try to zoom in a little bit in Lowell. What they have is a shared parking chart. And this is an example where you have a parking requirement, and during different points of the day, your percentage of what parking you're required to have varies. So you can have a calculation set up, and then depending on the different use mix of that property, your parking requirement may actually get a little more efficient and go down as opposed to the highest amount at any one time. So it can get complicated. People can try to get sometimes maybe a little overly creative. We're trying to keep it simple for your consideration here. So we looked at some business professional office. Again, this was kind of brought up during the whole MBTA communities discussion. A lot of remote hybrid schedules that have really seemed to take hold. Nearly 30% of people still looking to have some semblance of remote work possibilities. We looked at a number of properties here in town that have business professional office. You look at their total parking spaces, even the cars that were parked, and aerial imagery in 2019 before the pandemic, and then even comparatively afterward. Just the utilization is just not there. It's you look at the average total, you're almost at 400 spaces in 2019, a little over a third used, and in 2023, another 20%. These images were taken during the middle of the week, during the hours of between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So during hours that you would think business professional office would be occupied. So you have Robbins Road area here. You can see a number of cars, I guess, kind of in this area in 2019, but a lot of vacant parking lot. And then even more so, 2023. You'll kind of see that as a theme throughout these images. Just a lot of empty asphalt that shows up over time. And over here, you have...
do you have anything that shows the vacancy rates of those buildings at this time? I mean, is it more of a change of people's habits of driving, or is it more that the buildings are empty?
That's a good question. We could try to dig up what the vacancy rates may have been at those particular points of time. I think it could just be more so that habits are changing.
I suspect it's both.
Yeah.
We don't have every site in full detail, and some of the property owners themselves don't have all the information for the various tenants, but we know for some of them it didn't change. We know that others, they might have been during the pandemic and more recent ones, the properties might have been fully leased, but the tenants were having hybrid, more formal hybrid options. But as those leases come due, it is certainly, we know that some of them were seeking less square footage.
Right.
But we do know, it seems the trend is that there's still less demand than what the parking is. But we know this board doesn't also want to create the situation, say you have a change of use, and even if it's not a change in use, it's the same business type to the same business type, but just every business might operate differently. We don't want to cut so close to the bone of utilization that now you create a future problem if there's, say, a tenant change or owner change. So I think you'll see that there's some conservatism built in some of these locations, and particularly for some that have the lab space. Like they've never, like literally, they've had extra parking lots that were used to satisfy parking, but they never needed. And so that's one of the areas that we think need some attention.
And I think that makes sense. However, like you say, some company comes in and takes out the labs and fills it with people.
Right.
I mean, I kind of like the land bank idea that we've done recently, so. Sorry, Joe.
No. So here's the current requirements. So business professional office, 1 per 200 square feet. Strangely enough, we don't have contractor's yard defined in the bylaw. It's not in the table of principal uses as allowed or not allowed anywhere. But we have a parking requirement that says not applicable, which doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. You would think if you're going to have that type of use, you would at least want to be able to have it as something you could determine during a site plan review process. So we're going to offer to make that change. Just by way of the business professional office, we looked at status quo. So again, your total parking spaces that provided today, You also have what was parked in 2019, 2023. If you actually look at what they're supposed to provide at 1 per 200, a lot of them aren't even providing the amount that they're supposed to provide. So you can see the percentage of cars that are actually there compared to what they would be required to provide is even lower when you compare it to what they have on the ground. The highest one being towards the top here, just a smidge over 40% in 2019. So we looked at an alternative of 1 per 400. So again, the percentages looking a little bit better in terms of its utilization. And then when you just think about the space of requiring someone at 1 per 200 versus 1 per 400, it doesn't sound like necessarily a big change. But for the size of these sites and these buildings, when you start adding up a typical 9 by 18 parking space, at these specific sites, you could get over 7.5 acres of land just by changing a parking requirement from 2 to 400, and it's seemingly never going to get filled based on the utilization that we see. And again, they're snapshots in time. You know, we can't guarantee that it's perfect, but they are during the week, during what you would think is typical business hours for that type of use. Then we looked at 1 per 600, just as another one. To Jeff's point, you start to get closer at that range if you were even to get back to, if you were to get back to the 2019 utilization. We're, asking if the board would consider a change to 1 per 4. This is kind of that first alternative. Seemed like everything would seem to be able to fit within, based on the demand that we've been seeing over the last few years for this type of use. And then again, changing from not applicable to as you may determine during the site plan review process, and that could be through, traffic studies or what have you for any time that particular use comes up. So those are for uses that are currently in the bylaw. I don't know if you want me to stop there. You want me just to go through? We can take questions afterward, Mr. Chair. Totally up to you. Want me to keep going?
Anyone have specific questions they want to ask on this now?
I do.
Okay.
Just one
Please.
question. Contractor's yard, it said you're taking out and landscaping service?
Yes, and this is where it kind of ties to uses. We're kind of lumping the landscaping service under
Into
general service establishment.
Perfect. Okay, just clarification.
Yeah. So
Thank
we
you.
would, as part of the definition when under uses, we would take out landscape service so as not to create any confusion on what falls under which category, because that's been confusing for this type of use that's come up in the past.
Mhm.
All right.
And I'm not sure if we've gone by it in this part of the presentation, but the differentiation of brewery, distillery, winery
Oh, yeah.
versus brew pub.
We're getting there.
Okay.
So that's coming up next. I'll zoom out a smidge so you can see it. So then we're talking about some new uses that we would look to define under the other agenda item. Brew pub versus brewery, distillery, winery. Both have their own licensing requirements. We can talk about briefly, but the thought being that a brew pub is going to be, more similar to a restaurant. They'll have a manufacturing and maybe a wholesale component, but they're going to be more so producing what's going to be getting sold on the site, and there'll be more of a restaurant there. Versus the brewery, distillery, winery, and what would be defined under that is going to be more of a manufacturing, wholesale distribution focus, with perhaps a tasting room for people to come in and sample products there. So just to kind of generate some discussion, we took kind of a blended approach on brew pub for looking at what a restaurant requirement, parking requirement is now, which is 1 per 3 seats. And light manufacturing, which is 1 per 300, and we're proposing 1 per 5 seats and 1 per 300. Thinking that there could be a little bit less seating space, but some more manufacturing space. And then brewery, distillery, winery again, looking more so, it's probably going to more closely mirror a warehouse type of use, and that's 1 per 400 currently in the bylaw. So again, just to kind of have a discussion point and a starting point for proposing a parking requirement.
So my one question here was, I like what you did with the brew pub in terms of kind of combining operations with retail sales. I think for brewery, distillery, winery, you need to recognize the retail sales as well. especially if it's a large number. So it's not only one per 400 square feet, but I think you need to allow so many parking spaces per number of seats, whatever, however you measure retail slots. And I think,
You
because I
wanted
think they
to-
could be very similar.
Yeah, would you want it to mirror under brew pub, 1 per 5? Does that make sense? Would you want a different ratio?
I think 1 per 5 is fine to start with. But I do think there needs to be recognition of parking associated with the retail versus the production component as well.
Sure.
So,
But again, 1 for 5 seats in dining space, right? You would think a brew pub's gonna have a bar. And 5 people aren't gonna climb in for every, I guess, does dining space, is it different for a bar seat?
Wasn't necessarily thinking so, but.
Even so, not many people are loading 5 people in a car to go out. And again, are they always gonna be at capacity? No, but you would, I think you need to plan for that.
So we can come up.
No, I'm just throwing it out there for
Yeah.
for
This is
discussion.
why we want, and we want
We just,
want to hear it tonight instead
Yeah.
of a month from now.
probably very, it should be very similar to what we use for restaurants.
Restaurants, yeah.
With a little bit of light manufacturing space, because there may be a couple more employees. But I think it's gonna offset, right? Because those people are probably making beer during the day, and they're going to brew pub in the afternoon.
Yeah, I agree.
that's why we didn't make it quite as high as restaurant. Just, again, just as a discussion. We could always mirror it.
But I agree with Bob on the brewery, distillery, and winery, because I think you could get a lot of people for tastings, you know, retail sales type thing, so I think we do definitely need to either have something for seats or, you know, something more than just the, you know, manufacturing. I don't think manufacturing is.
So if there's thought for area that's not for the production, some value for that area and/or looking at seats.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I mean, if they put in 10 seats, I'm not as concerned as if they put in 100 seats.
Yep.
But I do think we need to recognize the impact of retail on parking.
But even if you go to Neshoba Winery, they have the big bar, and there's a lot of people standing. There's no seats, but standing for
there's still
tasting.
capacity number.
But
They have
it's
a
still-
capacity.
yeah, it's
Fire
still-
department capacity.
Right,
There's a fire
right,
capacity,
right. But I mean, for parking, you have to account for those, so,
and they do.
yeah.
Gentlemen, any thoughts?
Just going back to the business or professional office, that would include medical offices too, right?
Medical could be, you know, banking, financial office, attorney's office.
My only thought on this, like the buildings that seem to have the highest kind of use of parking would be, like if you look at Emerson, going over there, there's a lot of doctors over there, or if you go to like the dentist, over by Circle Health, those tend to be more used parking spaces than like one of the industrial parks we looked at, or, But look at that too. I would take a look at, look at utilization over by like Emerson, because I think with our aging population, you might have more medical offices than less in the future. And taking a look at that kind of parking requirement too.
Good.
Any thoughts you want to share there, Dylan?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Let's see, where are we at here?
I assume a meadery would fall under a winery?
What's that?
A meadery?
Meadery? Do you want anything else from us, Joe, on this?
So we can look at the different, I guess, medical office uses and see what we can find in terms of the generation of parking there.
Yeah.
Would you have a preference of square footage or seats on the brewery, distillery, winery?
My thought, not to make things more complicated, would be to break it up by space, right? So if they've got a function room that has a capacity of 30 people, you do it by seats, and then you add on whatever their light manufacturing capacity is and figure the parking that way. Obviously, there'll be overlap at times when people aren't there and there's people working. Hopefully, maybe amend it slightly at the site plan review, but I think initially, I think the wise way would be break it up, depend on the uses of the, I thought.
I would agree with that, other than what we just said about our example, where it's capacity, not necessarily seats.
That's what I mean, capacity.
And I think that's what you meant, so, yeah. I'm gonna stand. This is just not comfortable.
Okay, that's helpful.
All right, so we will continue this.
See if there's
So,
any
a couple
public
things.
comment, or-
So, yeah, comments from the public, but wait, we only opened the one relative to
Parking.
parking.
We've got the second one to open. Do we want to continue this first or open the second one? Keep them together?
Gotta go to the public.
Yeah, well, we have to go to the public first. Is there potential for one to affect the other? Should they?
Just ask for comment on
Why don't we ask for comments on parking, keep it open, don't continue this one, and then open the other?
Having said that, anybody in the audience, any thoughts, questions, concern on a zoning bylaw amendment to establish and/or modify parking regulations for several uses? All right.
None. So I will move that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice for PB 2417 then.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. And I'll move that we open PB 2417 to amend the zoning bylaw to regulate specific uses where permitted.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll run through this quickly as well. Again, looking to maybe add and define some new uses, things that have come up over the last few years that just aren't in our bylaw now, or very challenging to try to categorize. Maybe look at some small tweaks just based on changing patterns throughout the town. Let's skip. Well, again, if things aren't defined and regulated in our bylaw, you're basically looking at a use variance, which can be a high legal threshold for some uses to meet, particularly if they have a high capital cost to start up. They may find that a bit tenuous to try to go in front of the zoning board for, which can ultimately hinder the economic development in town and hurt the tax base. So again, we've heard some different uses that have come up repeatedly, and we want to try to go ahead and define and regulate those or make some small changes just based on some history. One of those being massage therapy, currently prohibited in all zoning districts right now, even though it is use listed in our table of uses and it's defined. So the zoning board has seen a few use variances for this particular use in the past. We had 12. I guess we just went to 11 based on the administrative earlier this evening. But they're located in the commercial highway, the industrial highway, and the industrial A zoning districts. So at this point, we're offering maybe a special permit option. Thought maybe a special permit option could make sense in these three districts as opposed to a use variance. For another one that we currently have listed in the table of principal uses and defined, restaurant. For one reason or another, it was prohibited in industrial highway, which is primarily along Littleton and Powers Roads. I guess the thought probably was that, the name suggests industrial highway was going to be larger scale developments over there. It was going to be large parking lots around it. You weren't going to have a lot of trip generation, I guess. But recently we've had commercial recreation overlay district trying to encourage more uses in those areas. MBTA Communities Overlay District incorporated a lot of industrial highway space, including residential use. So it's kind of changing the nature of that district. So it could make sense for folks that have properties in here where they're trying to keep tenants or attract new ones to have amenity space in there, including restaurants. So why not allow that option? So we would recommend allowing restaurants in the industrial highway district. So this is what that change would look like in the use table. Again, it would just be an N to a Y for restaurant, VIH, and then a special permit option with the zoning board for massage establishments in those three districts.
And not for nothing, we did have a property owner who owns that industrial district along Littleton Road that would like to explore the possibility of a restaurant along Littleton Road, but they cannot do so at this time because it's prohibited in that zoning district. Crazy.
So then we get to some of the new uses. Again, the brewery, distillery, winery, and the brew pub. We kind of did an internal exercise in our office. We kind of went over a little bit distinguishing the difference between the two. Came up with a definition based on research that we found through other communities that have looked at these uses. I won't read the whole thing for you, but for both brewery and brew pub, as you can tell, it does lean on the fact that they are licensed under Mass General Law, and what they may or may not have in terms of their sales, what the type of breakdown in terms of the restaurant use. We actually came up with pretty similar requirements for across the board. So not allowed in the residential districts or the business limited, which I think is only one parcel, maybe two in town. Also not allowed in the industrial D district, which is also two parcels up in the northern part of town. Offering a special permit option in the business, industrial A, industrial B, industrial C, and allowing them by right in the commercial highway and industrial highway.
But it's important to note that if they triggered the need, if they trigger the threshold for a major commercial project, then they'd still be subject to the special permit process.
This special permit would be with this board for either of those uses. And then again, contractor yard, we've tried seeing if it fits under general service establishment, if it's business innovation center is one project called it in the past. It's listed in our parking requirements, again, not applicable, which doesn't necessarily make sense. If you had the contractor yard come in and for some reason they got a use variance, and you're gonna say they don't have a parking requirement, it doesn't seem to make sense. So we're looking to define that use, again, looking at how other communities have kind of dealt with it, find a definition or combination of parts that we like to come up with this. And then looking at the use allowance, again, we did an internal exercise and had some healthy debate on the commercial highway and industrial highway districts. So I guess just to back up, not allowed in the residential districts, not allowed in business or business limited, allowed by special permit, again through this board, industrial A, industrial B, industrial C, not allowed in industrial D. And I think it comes down to what was the kind of intent on industrial highway in terms of, you know, how that may have been seen in the past versus thinking about where industrial highway is along Littleton Road and Powers Road, and the changes that we're seeing through some of the other overlays that were recently approved in terms of encouraging a mix of uses. Is something like a contractor yard really the highest and best use that you would want along Littleton and Powers Road, where we're encouraging either multifamily residential development or other restaurant or other types of uses that are going to encourage a lot more people there. So we left that as a discussion with the board before we recommended it. And lastly, again, just a small change in general service establishment, since we don't want to create any confusion on the landscaping of where that falls. Just to make a small tweak to the language of what a general service establishment is, and say that landscapers would fall under this here. And that's about it. So again, didn't know if there were any questions on any of those, and if the board had any thoughts, particularly on the contractor yard and commercial highway and industrial highway.
One thing I'll throw out just to begin with, why wouldn't we consider allowing the massage therapy as a matter of right in those three districts?
I'll ask that. We're not opposed to that, but generally when we're talking about a use that's prohibited under the zoning bylaw, call us chicken, but we like to dip our feet in the water and throw out the special permit option, so it's not an automatic, and on a case-by-case basis, the board could decide what makes sense. We don't have an objection, we just thought we'd start there and have this conversation.
I was just curious. So, you know.
Yep.
I guess particularly with this one too, it's just how it wasn't allowed. It was listed as no everywhere, which seemed kind of strange.
Well, it's listed as not allowed, and yet we have a dozen of them.
No,
So
right.
It seems like we're coming up with ways to just create paperwork for ourselves by not allowing it by right somewhere, I would argue.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah, I agree with
All right, we'll start, Bob. Thoughts to begin with?
Yeah, I'm fine. This is, I think I like all the changes. I think we have to think about a couple of the districts. Contractor's yard strikes me as a little odd, not allowed in some of the industrial districts, but my only other concern within contractor yards is, in the two cases we've dealt with recently, besides parking, is the abutting distances because of distances from residential parcels and noise. And that's not really dealt with by these changes here. So, I don't know if there's some way we can deal with that, but I am in favor of getting a definition of a contractor yard into the bylaw, so it'll make our job easier. So, that's it.
Joni?
I totally agree with all the changes. I think it's great to have these definitions. I do have two questions on the definitions themselves. First, on the brewery definition, in the middle of the text, it talks about provide samples at no charge and limited size. Do we really want to say no charge? Are we getting into the economics of something? I mean, I agree with limited size, or, I mean, maybe some places do want to charge, so something to think about. Maybe we should eliminate those words.
We're also getting into maybe ABCC laws.
Right, and other things that are, yeah. And then on the contractor yard, in that definition, we're pointing out scrap materials used for maintenance of a contractor's or contractor's own equipment. Do we want to point out scrap materials? I just think about storage of scrap materials. I think about a junk heap and junk pile. And do we really want to point that out in a definition? It's just a thought.
So it would just be storage used for repair?
Yeah, storage of materials used for repair. I think I would feel better with that. And that was it. Thank you.
I think on brew pub. I mean, I think of brew pub as basically a restaurant that just happens to be, make it there, right? Farm to table. So do we need a separate, why can't we just include that as in with a restaurant?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I was going to say, I don't understand why we would have different use table for brew pub than we would have for
And
restaurants.
I see in our definition here is the production, sale of beer or other alcoholic beverage at the location whose primary business is the sale and preparation of food.
It's a restaurant that just happens to make some of their own beer or...
So I think that the only difference maybe is that, again, separating the light manufacturing from parking and other stuff, but I think that, do we add that as basically a definition of a restaurant?
Or at the very least have the same, use table. It's permitted in the same areas that a restaurant would be permitted.
Yep.
Unless we have some reason to think that we need to have a different, and lean on special permits as opposed to allowed by right where restaurants are allowed.
Yep.
Interestingly, while we're on that point, I mean, the brewery, distillery, and winery, I would think that those would be good uses in the industrial areas. So unless we're being conservative, I won't say chicken, and taking a toe dip here around a special permit, why wouldn't we allow a distillery or a brewery in the industrial by right? Just like that would be a good use of some of the large parcels that we have in those areas if we had an applicant who wanted to do that, I would think.
So just one of the reasons we were being a little conservative there is that, particularly in the IA district, a lot of those properties are immediately abutted by residential properties.
Okay.
So as you know, we've had a lot of friction, say along Groton Road, and that's where you have that interplay with IA, RA, and back and forth, so.
I suppose that's fair, and at scale, there's probably some consideration around odor and maybe noise.
Yeah, there's a lot more potential, we thought, for, there could be more perceptions of, nuisance. I mean, the board may still have the special permit process that could allow for, a little tighter control. But we just, and again, we defer to the board. We just thought, to start the conversation, it made sense just because there were more residential abutters in those, around those districts.
Darren?
No, I think I agree that a brew pub would be very much like a restaurant, but you're gonna have extra space there. Like, look at the one in Tingsboro now, across from Skate 3. It's a pretty big building. A lot of that's for the manufacturing production.
There's a lot of parking there, too.
There's a lot of parking too, so. Yeah, I think it's very comparable to a restaurant in terms of use. My only question, I guess, is, and staff had left this for consideration tonight, you know, contractor's yard in commercial highway or industrial highway. So any thoughts on that? I mean,
I think it should be, yeah, I think it should be allowed.
In both?
Yeah.
Certainly industrial.
Industrial, maybe not commercial.
Here's the map, just in case you wanted to.
And again, you know, this being new relatively, is that why special permit, I think, in some places, especially industrial highway, you would think it's a matter of right.
Industrial highway, generally have Tech Park East, Liberty Way, Powers, Robbins. This is Kimball's parking lot here. Why it's in IH, I'm not sure, but a little portion of Littleton Road down by Princeton.
Is there none on Route 40?
Not industrial highway, it's industrial A up there. As the map loads up, you'll see it.
I mean, I can see on commercial highway on Littleton Road, you don't want to have a contractor's yard necessarily, but.
Yeah, maybe special permit for highway, industrial highway, not allowed. Commercial highway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
As a starting point?
Or just, yeah. Yeah.
Anybody in the audience have any thoughts, questions, concerns? We're going to continue this at least one more time so we can discuss and hammer through things, so. If you're in the television world, feel free to email, come visit us here.
I would just ask on the special permit in industrial highway for that. I assume this board would want to be the special permit granting authority as opposed to the zoning board, since it's likely it could also be, depending on the size, major commercial project, it would be in front of this board anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry, couldn't
It would just, if it's going to be large enough, it's going to be a major commercial project, it would be in front of this board anyway, and
Yep.
likely for site plan review, so. I just, yeah.
That makes sense to me.
All right.
Do we want to continue these to the 16th?
Yeah, does that work for you, Mr. Morissette?
Absolutely does.
Yes, thank you.
So then I will move that, can I continue to with one motion? Why not? I move that we continue PB 2403 and 2417, the zoning bylaw amendments for the upcoming special town meeting, to our meeting here on the 16th of September, 7 PM, meeting room 201.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to our first general business item. Consider request for a full release of the remainder of the tri-party agreement for PB 07001, Weedemo 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you have the request from Attorney Alphin in your packet. This project was permitted quite some time ago. The engineering office did look at the request. They saw no issues with releasing the remaining retainage. That's the remaining balance. The roadway is done. They've now sold the last lot that, for one reason or another, was never developed, but it's now been sold. So I think they're looking to try to wrap everything up, including this request. So that's the nature of the request. Again, engineering doesn't have any issues. Just in front of you for a vote.
Anybody on the board have any questions? Bob?
Nope.
Joan?
Nope.
Dylan?
Nope.
Darren?
Nope.
All right, I have no questions.
That we approve the request to release what looks to be, is this right, $33,662.93?
That is the balance.
The full balance of the remaining tri-party agreement for PB 07001.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next up, we have PB 2421-0409-415 Groton Road. Two new businesses in NR, create two new buildable lots, Lot 6 and 7, and one parcel A to remain, as well as a minor lot line adjustment between lots 4 and 5.
It's kind of in the description there. This is kind of a continuation of sorts of the last A&R that you saw in this area. We had lots 1 through 5. So we'd have two hammerhead lots as lots 6 and 7. And then you have a parcel remaining over here, parcel A identified here. There's a small lot line adjustment between slot 4 and 5. It meets the hammerhead lot standards. There are 2 in a row. You couldn't necessarily get a third, but each one meets the standards for hammerhead lot.
Bob, any questions?
No.
Tony?
No.
Dylan?
No, sir.
Darren?
Nope, it meets the criteria, right?
One thing I would say is that in the description, to create two new buildable lots, I don't like how we say buildable, right? That's subject to a zoning opinion by our building inspector. We can do A&R lots, but
It should say 2 new lots.
2 new lots. Yeah, but anyway. Do we have to motion on an A&R? We're just signing.
We prefer a motion and then not leave the room until we get your signatures.
All right. So is there a motion on PB 2421 to endorse the plan? It creates 2 new lots, lots 6 and 7, one parcel A, and a minor lot line adjustment between lots 4 and 5.
So moved?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next up, PB 2315, 70 Boston Road. I see Mrs. Harding here.
Service.
Smile.
Good evening.
I am back exactly 1 year, almost to the day, since we were here to ask for your special permit for 70 Boston Road. At that time, we had already agreed with the Conservation Commission that we would be very delighted to allow parking on our property for people to have access to the Peace Trail, which is abuts 70 Boston Road. And then as we had ongoing conversations, it came up that perhaps another parking space there for an electrical vehicles charging station would be useful. And so we offered that as well. And that got added into your site plan approval as a requirement. Over the year, we have tried to work with Sue Thomas to find funding to put that there. And then when Mike Edwards came on as assistant town manager, we worked with him about whether perhaps some of the EV chargers in town that are not being used a lot could be transferred there. None of those worked. And in addition, Mike Edwards looked very closely at that site as a good place for a public EV charger. And it turns out the 2 premises on which I recommended that I thought were really good reasons for it, he finds to be absolutely not good reasons for it, and I defer to him absolutely. I thought easy on, easy off at 495 would be good. As you can see from Mike's letter of August 8th, he's concerned that people would just get off and on that exit for no other reason except to charge, and that it really wouldn't be used that much. So I'm coming before you tonight to ask you if you would waive that requirement. If it ever comes up that it is a good site and the town can find the funding for an EV charger, we would be glad to work with them. But to have it be a site review requirement could affect our occupancy permit if it hasn't been installed by the time residents are ready to move in at the end of this calendar year. So I would ask if you would please to waive the site-specific condition number 3, which reads, as volunteered and agreed to by the applicant, the EV charging stations and 5 parking spaces near Boston Road shall be installed as shown on the plan. Whatever verbiage is required to take out any reference to the electrical vehicle chargers. And if it stays 5 spaces for public parking to the Peace Trail, I don't think we need that. It would be lovely if that many people were there. I think we could keep that at 3 and just remove the other 2, which were to be the electric vehicle charger. But I think that's the wisdom of the board. Thank you. That answered the questions.
Great.
Can I, just, so, I do want to point out, we did speak with the sustainability coordinator some time ago. Everything that the applicant has mentioned, it's consistent. I believe there was an arrangement on their parts that the applicant would provide the infrastructure to support the installation of an EV charger. That's not what the planning board's condition said, but if you recall, the applicant volunteered this condition of approval. I will say, I don't believe the board had the authority to require it in the first place. And come to find out, the more we learned over that year, it not being town property, there were issues with potentially securing grants on the municipality's behalf to install an EV charger on private property. But I will say the applicant did install the infrastructure. It is available for a charger to be connected to at some time. So just want to make sure you're getting credit for that. But that's just where we're at. And as you saw, the other assistant town manager put forth correspondence not objecting to this request. So.
All right. Go to the board. Any questions, Bob?
No.
Joni?
No.
Dylan?
No.
Darren?
No, I agree with the assistant town manager's letter.
I have no questions, so seeing that, can I have a motion to approve the request for the minor modification of the condition number 3 for PB 2315, relative to the installation of the EV charging station?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Also very, very much.
Okay, PB 1707, Spalding Hill Estates, request that the board, 1, establish a bond for St. Paul Lane, and 2, release lots 7 through 21 from the covenant. Morning, good afternoon, Mr. Guthrie, good evening.
Afternoon, Dave Guthrie, Spalding Hill Homes, Inc. We're in tonight to request bond establishment for Station 2150 to the end. We're at the last leg of this deal up on the Old Canal Farm, called Spalding Hill Estates off of Route 40 off of St. Augustine Drive. We came to you with a full retainage Form G and also work left in place. There were some discrepancies, I think, in town engineer's review. However, I think you have a letter from them stating that they're minor in nature. Our design engineer is on vacation. We anticipate him back this week. We ask that you approve this, conditioned on the fact that he'll clean this up and town engineer signs off at that point. I'm trying to save a little time, get some foundations in, get some of that slope stabilized in September, and move this thing along.
All right, thank you. Jeff, Joe?
No, just, we did have direct conversations with the engineering department. They do not have any issue if the board wants to move forward on this. It's just, everyone's entitled to vacation. The minor hiccups, if you will, they just couldn't be addressed by someone on vacation. And again, if they reach an irreconcilable difference, which we don't anticipate, then they come back to the board. But really, we anticipate very trivial changes to this. It's about making the math match the work, and we usually ask the board to have benefit of that final math before they sign. So in this case, if the board takes that approach, it would not come back for a signature for the chair until we have something from the engineering department that they're in full agreement with that, which should be minor changes from what is in your packet.
Okay. Bob?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Dylan?
None.
Darren?
Nope, no issues along.
Is the board comfortable with this approach?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
You want to make a motion?
Sure. I will, let's see. I'll move that for PB 1707, we establish the bond for St. Paul Lane and release lots 17 through 21 from the covenant. The amount of the bond is...
It'll be final determination.
So, yeah, so what do you want me to do? Leave that open-ended?
I would just say, as in substantially as in the packet, with minor adjustments to be approved by the engineering department.
Great. As offered by Jeff.
Second.
Motion a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
All right.
mean,
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate the flexibility.
Westford, we're not so bad.
That's a new slogan?
Lovely place to live and work.
The water's good.
well.
Moving right along, we have the minutes from July 15th to be approved. Tony, you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 15th, 2024 meeting.
There's a motion, any discussion? Bob?
None.
Joey?
None.
Dylan?
Oh, they look good to me.
And Darren, you weren't there, any questions?
Sorry, I missed, who was the second?
Bob.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't have any issues, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstained?
Abstain.
All right. I didn't see any correspondence, did I?
There's some correspondence.
There is some correspondence, yes.
So we just wanted to make you aware, a recent housing bond bill that was signed by the governor. This will, amongst other things, it will definitely affect accessory dwelling units here in town. So what this changes is that accessory dwelling units, basically under, I'm really simplifying here, if they're under 900 square feet, they may potentially be allowed as of right, meaning that there would be no special permit process required.
This is at the state level, right?
State level. It would also remove the requirement for owner occupancy of either the primary or accessory dwelling unit. It's a little nuanced in the rollout because some sections appear to already be in effect, whereas the as of right status doesn't take effect until February 2nd. So right now, you can't unduly restrict accessory dwelling units. We don't feel that we do. We have a process, a clear track record of approving them through special permit process. So we don't have to worry about that part because we already checked that box. But the as of right will be a thing as of February 2nd. And there may be guidance documents provided by Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So I would anticipate we will have another zoning bylaw amendment, probably for the annual town meeting, relative to ADUs, because we now have to deal with what about ADUs that come in that are 1,000 square feet? What if it doesn't fit what the state's box is now? There needs to be some way to address it, or not, but we just don't want our bylaw being contradictory to state law.
But that could be a fairly minor amendment, keeping what we have and just adjusting it up to cover any delta between the state's regulation and the maximum theoretical size outlined in our bylaws. Because isn't it 1/3 of the? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, we did an amendment 2 years ago to get rid of the whole math situation. We simplified it to 900 square feet, and now
there's math again.
Now there's math again, but it's not so simple because maybe it is possible that ADUs may be treated kind of like some of the Dover or protected uses like churches, daycare facilities. So it's entirely possible that if there is an ADU and maybe it doesn't meet zoning setback requirements, that might not necessarily trigger the need for setback relief through a variance. And every one of these could get looked at on a case-by-case basis. So it may not be, it would be great if it was that simple. Gotcha. But we don't know yet, and we won't know till the guidance, if we get guidance, comes out.
They seem to allow municipalities to be able to have a site plan review option for these, but it might not make sense to have a site plan review option for something that's a by right use anyway.
So now, as of like February, if I have a 4,000 square foot house, I could potentially carve that up into 5.
Nope, you get one as of right. If you want to have more than one ADU, then the town could potentially allow that through something else in our zoning bylaw. You get one as of right, and it could be detached or attached.
One per property.
More to come.
More to come. All right.
Get your thinking caps on for future bylaw amendment.
All right, great. We don't meet again until September 16th, is that right? Mm-hmm. Jeffrey? Well, we can sneak one in, Jeff, if you want to.
I wouldn't want to impose on your free time.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion is second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.